and the truth shall set you free. Oh my goodness. So I happen to have watched Cenk Uygur versus 25 Democrats, and it was very interesting because there is a phenomenon that happens on the left, whether, they consider themselves populists, progressives, the left, whatever it is that whenever Black American issues come up, somehow, one way or another, these, fight for trans rights, we got to protect the LGBT, the fascism that's going on in this country, that when Black American grievances come up, they turn into just Klansmen, bruh. They go into, well, listen here, okay, partner, all right, how about you stop being a victim and lift yourself up by the bootstraps?
He's out of line, but he's right.
And Cenk Uygur is a perfect example of that. This man is screaming and hollering about, Democrats don't care, and we got to work on health care, we got to work on, raising the minimum wage, yada, 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 yada. And this one black chick exposes all of that, exposes him for what he seemingly is after we remove this veneer of human rights and all of this. And it seems to be a racist, an anti-black racist. Because in this interaction, he honestly echoes talking points seen of that of Charlie Kirk, who he already knows is a racist. And he's talking about affirmative action. And he's saying, after years and years and years of affirmative action, we needed it at first, but after all these years, it's turned into DEI.
So in the beginning, did we need affirmative action? Definitely. Because what happened before the civil rights movement was, so let's say that your firefighters or your longshoremen, those are really good jobs. They pay pretty well. They're good blue collar jobs. But unfortunately, at that point, almost all the jobs are held by white people. So we do affirmative action because, guys, we got to let others in. Otherwise, it's not fair, right? And so that makes sense. But then over the course of decade after decade after decade, we wind up with DEI.
What? Now, that right off the bat is untrue. DEI and affirmative action are two very different things. But I find it interesting how they try to play up the affirmative action, a masquerade. It's something that, many racists on the right want to say, is that how many years of help do you need, black people? Goodness gracious, you got affirmative action. And that in and of itself is the hustle. Because how do you try to assist a group of people, which is what affirmative action allegedly was for, black Americans, who you guys had disparaged and ridiculed and mocked and, racism for us in this country, that you're trying to put this out to say, hey, we're trying to make up for this, okay? We're trying to give redress for this issue. And then you do the hustle and switcheroo of saying, well, it's not only for black Americans, it's for all minorities, it's for all groups of people. Damn. That, my friends, is the hustle. You give a policy that is meant for black people, black Americans here in this country, descendants of chattel slavery, but then you open it up to everyone. How? How does that make sense to anyone? How do you open it up to everyone when you didn't do that to everyone? Not everyone was a chattel slave here. Not everyone faced Jim Crow policies. Not everyone, as far as was illegal to educate themselves, to read and write. So how do you do that for specifically black Americans here in the United States, but then give a policy that's opened up for everyone, as if everyone was harmed by this specific and exclusive policy for us?
To this day!
And that's the issue in many of these, I'll say these white liberals, is that there is that ounce of evil in them, bro. That ounce of evil that they have to suppress, okay? Unless it's fully gone, it's definitely there. And it rears its ugly head in certain conversations such as this. And he talks about DEI. Okay, what's your issue with DEI? Because that's what she says. She's like, okay, what's the issue with DEI?
And DEI has some good things in it, but it also had some abuses in it.
This man brings up an anecdotal story of how a white woman was told, hey, well, you need to be quiet and just listen. Because she was trying to offer her perspective. And they were like, hey, be quiet, just listen. This is your time to listen, not talk. And that's his example of why DEI is harmful, okay?
A white woman would say, okay, now can I tell you my perspective? And they would say, no, shut up, your job is to learn.
What? Think about this. In no other shape, form, in no other atmosphere, in no other arena would he allow someone to bring up an anecdotal reason, an anecdotal story of why raising the minimum wage is harmful, of why, what Trump isn't doing is fascism. He would never do that. But he does this when it comes to black Americans. He brings up one little story. And she says, well, that type of abuse happens with all laws.
Okay.
So are you talking about like fringe cases in which like someone would say that they feel unfairly treated by DEI? Because I think in any type of law that we're going to see passed, we're going to see fringe cases in which the law is I guess manipulated in some case to negatively affect certain groups.
And she's absolutely right. This black chick is destroying Cenk right in front of our eyes and exposing him to be a racist. That's what he is. And she's saying, why would you use that as an example to just throw out, essentially the baby with the bathwater? He then goes on and it makes it even worse. Now the mask is full off. And he just says, well, it's divisive.
What it also does at the same time, though, is serves to divide us.
What? It's divisive? Think about this. He's arguing for, a higher minimum wage. He's arguing for universal health care. He's arguing for he's arguing for a lot of things that many of the Republicans would consider as divisive. That even though if you poll it a certain way, if you poll it another way, well, if you do this, it's going to raise your taxes, that it's divisive. Anything that has to deal with progress is divisive. But he happens to have an issue when it comes to black issues. That's the real truth of this matter. The issue is that if it benefits black people, now it's divisive. Now it's an issue. Now we can't do it. That in and of itself is his issue with DEI. Because she goes on to say that, hey, it's not about class. Because this is always a hustle they want to say. Well, Lucas, it's not about race. It's about class. It has never not been about race. Even with class, it has never not been about race. You can have a poor white. At the end of the day, they are white in this country. You can have a rich black person. At the end of the day, they will be seen as an N-word. It does not matter. We have seen this time and time again, whether it's Tyler Perry, whether it's Oprah Winfrey, whether it's a litany of black individuals that despite them being a certain affluence in this country, that they are treated a certain way due to the color of their skin. And she goes on and cites a study that, hey, that even with you, when you acknowledge race, it actually harms black people. That the issue is not class. The issue is race in this country.
I don't remember if it was 2015 or 2002, but it was a study done where they simulated a class-based DEI program instead of race. What we found was equally qualified black individuals were much less likely to be chosen on this class-based protocol. And we saw that the protocol actually represented a lot less of the black population that exists in this country, whereas DEI ensures that we have a representative pool of applicants and admitted students in our colleges, which is extremely important.
Do you want to know what his response was? His response was, man, so what? That's essentially what his response was. Because he goes on and gives an analogy. Well, even when we address for class, that if these Muslims were still hurt, that should we give a little more attention to the Muslims? No way. And his reason is, it's divisive. You can't make this up, bro. You can't make this up.
If you say to me, hey, maybe Muslims have a disadvantage even if you take class into account, so should we give a little bit of extra weight to Muslim candidates? I would say absolutely not.
Are you retarded? This man is a clown. This man is a blubbering, corpulent clown. That's what he is. He's a racist clown. Because then she hits him up with, how does that make any sense, bruh? How does that make any sense? You don't want to attack racism because you have to attack racism. And she cites as far as studies for that, where it's like, hey, you have to, if you want to stop racism, you have to attack racism.
If you want less racism and less racial categorizing, or us to see that as less of an initial categorization, studies show that we need to attack racism and race as a concept like head on. We cannot ignore them or input race neutral policy into place. What we find is that characterizing race, saying what it is, saying what racism is, and thus confronting ourselves with our biases is what limits them.
Wake up, nigga.
There is no going around the bush and, well, we all want to get along and all that. Because he used the other talking point, whereas, well, I want to be seen as American. I don't want to be seen as a Muslim. I don't want you to be seen as a black girl. Like, what?
And it makes them seem like they
Here's
didn't
what I
earn
find
it,
super important.
when in fact they
So
did earn
what's
it.
your
I'm sorry, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
You say, hey, I reduced racism by 10%, 20%, etc. What you're doing is you're not noticing the giant downside of that.
What? And she's like, that's always been the case. You're never going to stop that from happening as far as putting people in categories. That just is what it is. It's how a human brain works, okay? You may be able to see this person as American, but it goes back to the racist argument of colorblindness. This man, Cenk Uygur, is using the racist talking point of colorblindness.
Which is then people start to view each other as black, white,
We've
Asian,
always done that.
etc.
That's happening unconsciously
But
all the time.
You're right, but what I would love is for us to stop doing that. I want him to look at you as an American.
Well, I just want to see all of us as Americans. This is bullcrap. This man is an anti-black racist to the core. That's what he is, all right? He may try and masquerade with certain talking points of, UBI and healthcare and income. This man is an anti-black racist because even when the data is presented in front of him, okay, when the arguments are dismantled in front of him, his whole argument is, well, I'm white and I say so. That's essentially his argument, okay? Is that, well, I'm Cenk and I say so. That it's divisive. Everything's divisive. Civil rights is divisive. Allowing women to vote at one point was divisive. Freeing black people from slavery was divisive. What is this clown talking about? It's divisive. There is no progress made without a certain level of divisiveness. And the issue is not to cater to the racists, but to let them know, hey, that racism is not going to be allowed here in this country. If you want to be racist, go somewhere else. If you want to be racist, keep it to yourself. Go in the furthest corner of the earth or in your woods and be racist there. But in public, that should not be allowed. And the main focus of her argument is that who cares about the response if the outcome is what's happening. If the outcome is changing, who cares about the racists who are upset about, the Emancipation Proclamation if freedom is what happens?
So no, we can't say, let's stop dividing people with the corrective policy. The corrective policy is helping something that has always existed, that's happening all the time. The problem is capitulating to right framework, which I think was what you're doing here when you said the response to DEI is going to be negative.
Damn. Who cares about the end of Jim Crow and, end of segregation if freedom is what happens?
I told you I have an issue with the policy itself. I think it divides us.
You haven't explained it.
Beta.
Like, this is the type of mindset that only happens to occur, that only happens to spontaneously arise when it comes to black people, when it comes to issues in this country pertaining to black Americans. I find it absolutely hilarious. He would never bring up such arguments when it came to gay marriage. He would never bring up such arguments when it came to trans rights. He would never bring up such arguments when it comes to universal health care, when it comes to maternity leave, any of that. But when it comes to black people, whoa. You see those people over there? They're upset about that, okay? It's divisive. It's divisive. You can miss me with this nonsense and Cenk can go straight to hell. Anyways, guys, that's the video. I don't want to hear it, bro. This man, I'm sick and tired of these liberals, these leftists, whatever you want to call them, who masquerade as, some arbiter of truth and morality, or, hey, we've got the better way and we actually care about the American people. And at the end of the day, they're nothing but, slow-cooked racists, bruh. That's all they are. That if you push enough, you come to find mask off. You're no different from a Charlie Kirk and a Kunis Owens and the rest of them. That there is no difference. Anyways, if you happen to disagree, you know where to find me. Thursday through Saturday, Disagreement Day. There'll be a number on screen. You call in, we duke it out. Otherwise, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please feel free to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And that fun stuff. Till next time, guys, be amazing.
What it also does at the same time, though, is serves to divide us.
Beta.